Hello, welcome to this channel. My name is Enoch. Today we will continue our series on AWS and we'll be looking at AWS policy types. We'll look at different types of policy that AWS has, and we'll be doing a very interesting exercise today. We will look at how to use permission boundary to prevent privilege escalation, by any delegated individual in your account. And it's going to be very interesting. Let's get right to it. So the first type of policy is identity-based policy, and is a kind of policy that is attached directly to IAM identity, such as users, groups, or roles, and define the permission for the identity to interact with AWS, resources and services. And they are of two types. One is managed policy, and the other one is inline policy. Managed policy are standalone policy that can be attached to multiple users or groups or roles. You can use it multiple times. You can use it for a lot of people. And there are two types of managed policies. And the first one is AWS managed policy, which are created and managed by AWS and designed for common use cases. AWS has a large pool of policies that you can use directly from. And we also have customer managed policies, which are created and managed by you, and they allow for more specific and customized permission. And inline policy is a kind of policy that you can give to a user group or role, and when you delete that particular user group or role, that policy is gone. It's not a policy that you can reuse like the managed policies. It's a one-time thing, one-off thing, and that's it. And we also have resource-based policies, which are policies that are attached directly to AWS resources, and they define permission for any principal accessing that resources. And they include S3 bucket policy, IAM trust policy. We saw in my last video how to use IAM trust policy. Another example is SNS topic policy, SQSQ policy, Lambda function policy, VPC endpoint policy, and resource-based policy are largely unrestricted by permission boundary or by section policy or by service control policy. Let's move on and let's look at this example of resource-based policy. You have version, which is usually 2012 1017. We have statements. You can have multiple statements, and you have effect can be allow or deny, which you also have principal, which specify who can have access to the resources, and it can be an AWS account, an IAM user, role, or service. And you have action, which specify which action are allowed. You have resources, which define the resources to which the policy applies to, and you can have condition, which add condition that must be met for the policy to take effect. And we also have service control policies. We call it organization service organization SCP, and they are used within AWS organization to restrict permission to an OU, to an organization unit, or in that particular organization. It defines the maximum permission for account and can be used to enforce organization-wide security policies. It does not give permission, but it restricts it. Is another layer of control to giving permission to anybody in that organization. Use it to limit the maximum level of permission that any entity can have. You could have given an overly permission to any OU or to any individual. With SCP, you can restrict that policy to specifically what you want. And we also have access control lists, which are used to control access to specific resources, such as S3 bucket object. They grant permission to specific AWS account and are less flexible compared to resource-based policies. We have section policy, another layer of control, just like the SCP. But section policy is used when someone assumes a role, or when someone federates into your account, which is also assuming a role. When you give temporary permission to someone to access your AWS resources, which they will be in a section, you can use section policy to limit the level of permission they have, just like you use SCP in organization. Any explicit deny in the policy will override any allow. Permission boundary, just like SCP and section policy, permission boundary is used on an individual, or on a user or on a role. You use it to limit the level of permission, an identity-based entity, can have in your AWS account. So the advanced policies that specify the maximum permission an entity can have, and they are used in conjunction with identity-based policy to provide additional layer of control. So it set the maximum permission an identity-based policy can grant, an IAM entity. Maybe you have given someone maybe an IAM full access in your account. You have delegated someone to be able to create users and give them permission, and you don't want this person to be able to, escalate their privilege, and so that means that you should use permission boundary to limit that particular user, so that user cannot, just go and create a user and give that user even administrative access or do anything they like in your account. So it's supported for user and roles, but not groups. So that's that about permission boundary. Let's look at some pictures here. When you have organization, SCP, and permission boundary and identity-based policy used together like this, the effective permission will be what is common to the three. What is common to the three. So the identity-based policy is the only thing that is giving permission here, and this organization, SCP, and permission boundary will limit that policy to specifically what you want. So whatever is not common to the three will not be allowed. You see? So that's that. We also have a situation where we have identity-based policy and resource-based policy. Everything that is allowed in both will be allowed. When you have identity-based policy with permission boundary, the effective permission will be what is common to both. Permission boundaries does not give permission, but they limit the level of permission an identity-based policy can give. So whatever is common to both, that's what will be the effective permission. And when you have organization SCP with identity-based policy, the effective permission will be what is common to both. Let's note that. And resource-based policy are generally not restricted by either permission boundary or section policy or SCP. They are generally not restricted. So be careful with resource-based policy, because whatever you state in resource-based policy are largely unrestricted. They are not restricted. So you can see what is effective permission, and this everything stated in resource-based policy is allowed. And let's move on. So, and when you have section policy, and permission boundary and identity-based policy, what the effective permission is, what is common to the three. Now, one thing I want to mention is when you have a resource-based policy combined with a section policy, what happens? I told you earlier, resource-based policy are largely unrestricted by either section policy or permission boundary or SCP. So be careful with resource-based policy. Well, let's look at the documentation to clarify this. You can go to Google and you can check. You can run AWS permission boundary, and you can let's check this third one. Let's check this one, permission boundary, and you can just read through this page to see how permission boundary is used. Just read through it, and let's scroll down. Evaluating effective permission with boundaries. You can see for identity-based policy and permission boundary, what is effective is what is common to both, and you can see resource-based policy are largely unrestricted. You can see when you use it, even with permission boundary, you can see now when you are using a resource-based policy,
with a section policy. Is it restricted? Is not restricted. You see, permission granted directly to a section are not limited by an explicit deny in an identity-based policy, a permission boundary, or section policy. So a resource-based policy, when is largely unrestricted. Whether you federate into an AWS account, whether you are assuming a role, resource-based policy are largely unrestricted. Though it restricts the ARN of the IAM user, but it does not restrict the ARN of the federated user. So it's unrestricted. So you can see, pick all these ones from here, and section policy, I pick all these ones from here. So now our project for today, delegating responsibility to others using permission boundary. So they give us an example here of Maria that has an account and want to delegate Zhang to be creating user and be giving them permission in our AWS account. And this particular policy is created for every user that is in the system, and they have to create. So Maria wants to allow Zhang to create all the users in the account, but only with permission boundary. So she created the following customer managed policy named delegated user boundary, and this policy defines the maximum permission that Zhang can have. And you can see this. You can see this is the permission boundary that has been created, and we are going to use this, and I'm going to explain what everything is doing, what each one is doing. And so this is the AWS Management Console, and this is the root account, and I have some users here, and we'll be using Enoch as an example today. So Enoch is the delegated administrator in this account. Let's click Enoch, and let me show you the permissions that he has. He has CloudWatch full access and IAM full access. So we are going to create a permission boundary, and we are going to attach it to Enoch as the administrator in this account, and we will see what that permission boundary is going to do to him. All right, so let's go and create the policy, and let's click create policy, and we are going to use JSON, and I'll be using this permission boundary that AWS has created here, and I have copied it and I've edited it. So I will just copy it. I will copy the one I've edited here, and I will explain it. Let me explain it here to us one after the other. Now, the first one here is to deny the creation of user without adding the permission boundary. So if Enoch is trying to create a user and did not add this permission boundary, it will be denied. So when he's creating a user, he has to add this permission boundary with it. That's what it is doing. I've changed this one to deny, and I've changed this string to string not equals. The allow, I've had some funny experience with the allow, so I changed this to deny, and I changed this to string not equal to, and I've put my account ID, and I've named this properly as I want. So name it. The name has to correspond with the name you are going to give the policy in your account if you are using this. And I'm giving full AWS access here because this will be used organization wide. Every user Enoch will be creating. Every user that the administrator is creating will be attaching this particular permission boundary to it, and for their policy to work, it has to be allowed. So that's why I give this full access. It's not giving anybody full access. It's just allowing their permission that has been stated in the identity-based policy to be able to work. So that's what this is doing, and this is going to disallow the editing of the permission boundary. No one will be able to edit the permission boundary, and no one will be able to delete the permission boundary. This editing, this particular statement, see, one of the possibility in IAM is the ability to change policy version and apply newer version as the default policy. So this specific statement prevents that from happening by setting the deny authority against those actions. With this, a user cannot update an existing policy with a newer policy version, make changes that will give elevated privileges, and apply that policy as the default. So that's why this is very important. You cannot edit the permission boundary, and you cannot delete the permission boundary with this. And I've also added the permission here. I've added a statement here which is going to deny access to cost and billing. This cost and billing should be for certain individual in the organization. So I just put it so that it will apply to every user that that the administrator is creating. And I also add another statement that would deny Enoch from being able to add permission to himself. Enoch cannot just wake up and go and add EC2 full access or any other access to himself. So you can see the resources, the ARN of Enoch cannot add permission to himself. So that's what he's doing. Let's copy the statement and let us go and add it to the policy that we are creating here. So that's that. And let's click next. Let's click next and let's give the specific name that we have stated. Let's give the name that we have stated is personal boundaries. This name has to be correct. This is permission boundary for all IAM users. And let's click create policy, and the policy has been created. Now let's go to users, click user, and let's go to the administrator, and let's add this permission boundary to Enoch. Click permission boundary there, and let's say set boundary, and let's go and choose this policy personal. Let's add it there, and let's click set boundary. And I've opened Enoch in a private window here, and let's see what Enoch can do. Let's refresh and let's see what Enoch can do. Now let's go to Enoch. Can Enoch check cost and billing? No, he can't. He can't check cost and billing. Okay, so that is fine. Let's go back to IAM. And let's go to users, and let's see if Enoch can add permission to himself. Can Enoch add permission to himself? Add permission. Let's see if you can add permission to himself. Say EC2 full access. Next, let's add it, and you see that's denied. All right, so those two things are there. Can he not go ahead and remove the permission boundary from himself? Say, why will anybody try to limit me like this? Let me remove this boundary. Can you remove it? See, permission denied. Can you see permission denied? Oh, Enoch, okay, I will go and edit the policy. Let's see whether Enoch can edit this permission boundary. Can Enoch edit the permission boundary? Let's try it out and see. Let's click edit. And let's remove the first one. Let's remove the first statement there, and let's see whether that can be done by Enoch. And let's go and click next down there. Can he edit this policy and set the new one as the default? And let's say save changes. You can see, so he cannot do that. He cannot edit the policy and set the new one as the default version. So that's that. So our boundary is working as expected. So that's that for today. Go and try it out, and you will see that it will work, and you can use this organization wide. I will also recommend that you ensure that you use AWS config to make it mandatory for everyone to change their password at their first sign-in, so that the administrator cannot go ahead and log in with an IAM user's credential and go and use it to do whatever he or she wants in the system. There are some little additional things that can be done to make sure that the administrator is really restricted and cannot elevate their, escalate their privilege beyond what we have given them. So that's that for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.